Okay.
Do you have any plans to visit the border?
At some point, we are going to the border. We've been to the border. So this whole thing about the border, we've been to the border. We've been to the border.
You haven't been to the border.
And I haven't been to Europe. And I don't understand the point that you're making.
So Kamala Harris is considering another desperate move by considering going down to the southern border. Yes, you heard me. The border czar is actually going to visit the border because new polls are showing that she's getting crushed by Donald Trump when it comes to immigration and the economy. So in this video, what we're going to do is react to this new update and explain to you why this is probably a bad move for her. Now, before we get to the video, if you want to support the channel, you could go to the link in the description, grab yourself a t-shirt, buy us a cup of coffee, like, share, and subscribe to this channel.
Let's turn to the question of immigration. We want to give our viewers a sense of where this poll shows voters are. Who do you trust more to handle immigration? This is, again, among likely voters. Trump, 49%, Harris, 35%, neither 15%. And we just want to add to this our new reporting today, which is that Kamala Harris's campaign says that she plans to go to the southern border of the U.S. soon.
So I understand why the campaign thinks that this is a good strategy, to put her down there to essentially argue, look, I care about this issue. The former president, he was the one that squashed that bipartisan border enforcement bill. He only wants this for politics. He doesn't actually care about this issue. But I think that when you speak to voters, they really crave authenticity. They want to, for all of the former president's issues, you'll often hear the caveat, well, he is who he is. The vice president has a long history, a well-documented history of really being an ally to these immigrant communities. She has 2 chapters in her book, I Say We Fight and We Are Better Than This, where she really makes a robust case for undocumented immigrants. During the Trump administration, she talked about a climate of fear. She dismissed the border wall as ineffective and a waste of resources. And even her guest at the joint session of Congress was a DACA recipient, was a dreamer. And so for her to go down there and characterize herself as tough on the border, to me, it isn't consistent with a lot of the policy positions that she previously has espoused. Mm-hmm. And so I think it's really important, and why she was so strong, I think, before the Hispanic caucus, when she talked about the havoc it would wreak in this country if another Trump administration enforced mass deportations, was because it felt authentic, it felt real. And so I think that is the challenge when she engages in sort of this border theatrics.
Now, I'm glad someone had the confidence to point out the obvious with this move from Kamala Harris's campaign, that it speaks to how fake she is once again. Now, all of a sudden, you want to visit the border when the presidency is on the line for you. That doesn't make sense. And for the life of me, I don't understand why she didn't truly visit the border. I went back to see the history of the clips that say that she visited the border. She didn't actually visit the border. She visited a town that was near the border. I mean, there's a difference. If you're from California, it's like she went to San Diego. That's still not the border. I mean, it's close to it, but it's still not the border. So the problem that she has by making this move is everybody's going to smell this as BS a mile away. They're going to see this for what it is. And the problem is the results tell a different story. And that's the interesting part about her campaign. She's trying to run on a record where the results are not good for the American people, overwhelmingly. Economy is bad. Immigration is bad. Foreign policy is bad. That's just what it is. And she's a part of the administration that allowed this to take place. Whether we want to blame them directly or indirectly, it doesn't matter. Her name's on it. So going to the border, I think would actually just make things worse for her image around that. And overwhelmingly, the country does not support what's happening at the border. They don't. But trying to explain that to people who clearly hate Trump, it just does not land for them, which is why they always respond with these talking points.
I would just add that I think that she should talk a lot about the fact that something that's underreported is that border crossings are down since 2020. We're not hearing a lot about that. And I think she should really talk about that a lot. I totally agree with you, though, on the potential flip-flopping. But she doesn't have a choice right now. She's 15 points down on immigration. She has to own this narrative. She has to try to take it back. And one way she does it is to also talk about that bipartisan bill that Trump completely killed. He should have been shouting from the mountaintops that he did that for immigration and that it was bipartisan. Didn't do that.
Yeah, so as you guys heard, that was just the same old talking points. Obviously, the border bill is going to be brought up, but what they never say is, when did that border bill come to the floor? Did that happen last year? Did that happen 2 years ago, 3 years ago? No, it happened in 2024. So what were you guys doing the last 3.5 years that you guys were in office? Why did you wait so long to put the most tough border bill in history on the floor? I mean, come on. People are not stupid if they do their research. And the interesting thing about, well, it's record low border crossings. What they're doing is like this. Hey, I exposed you to radiation over the last 3.5 years, and now I'm done exposing you to radiation. Damage from radiation to the human body has been done already. It doesn't matter that you've removed me from the radiation already. The damage was done. That's what they did to the country, okay, by letting millions and millions of undocumented illegals to cross the border. They have a hard time tracking them. There's so many people they miss. They have to estimate what the number really is. They don't know the exact number to the T. And then they don't know how many criminals, all right, and where did those criminals come from? I mean, so, you know, it's very disingenuous to argue immigration and say, well, we have the record low for border crossings. Okay, if you want to play that game, let me come back at you with this. How did you get the record low border crossings? How did that happen? Oh, well, it happened because Joe Biden issued an executive order. Really? So why didn't he issue an executive order back in 2021? Why didn't he issue an executive order in 2022? Why didn't he issue an executive order in 2023? Why did he wait till now to do it? Oh, I know, because it's an election year. So she loses on immigration. I don't think she should even attempt to try to argue immigration because the results are so obvious. And the only people who are truly going to support what she's saying is people who already hate Trump. So she's not really going to win over undecided voters on this immigration issue.
Politically, of course, she should go. She's been beaten on the issue. I mean, Donald Trump holds a 21-point lead, as you showed at the very top of this segment. Also, that same NBC News poll suggested that 66% of the American people believe the country is on the wrong path. And so while I agree with Aisha that the vice president was tasked with figuring out the root causes of immigration, the available data that we have, not just from the NBC poll, but a Times Siena poll, a CNN poll that came out 2.5-3 weeks ago, suggests that most Americans don't believe whatever suggestions the vice president may have on this issue are the right suggestions to actually solving the problem, Aaron. And so strategically speaking, it absolutely makes sense for her to be there. Will it make a difference? I'm not convinced based on the numbers I've seen so far.
And that's the deal for me is results tell a story. Men lie, women lie, numbers don't. So going there is a waste of time. She just needs to continue to do what works, which is her abortion rhetoric. Okay. Can she try to fight with the original talking points of Trump killed the border bill? Sure. But I don't believe that's going to win over undecided voters.
A trip to the border. Good idea, bad idea?
Good idea. Do it all. I mean, I don't have any objection to that. I think that at the end of the day, I think that people, when they have a question about substantive policy, when it comes to immigration, I mean, there's only one person who's actually serious about passing immigration law. And what I have to remind people is like conjunction junction. You remember how a bill became a law? Conjunction
What's your
junction.
function?
What's your function? Yeah. And so, like, of course, she had a policy position on immigration. But Senator Langford, I do believe, was the senator who put up one of the toughest immigration bills that we've seen. It went through conjunction junction in the United States House of Representatives and Senate. And the person that killed it was Donald Trump. Is it what Kamala Harris wishes? No.
That's not completely accurate. That bill was never brought up. That bill was never brought up in the House. That bill was only brought up in the House.
Why was it not brought up in the House is the question.
Because that focused more on the process to bring people into the United States versus securing the border.
And who made the phone calls to the members of the United States House of Representatives?
Hold on. Okay. The bill addressed border security. It actually had a proposal to quote unquote shut down the border
when they hit a
crossings
certain number of
to a
thousands a day.
That was a Republican idea that the White House adopted.
And Republicans
so
could disagree with it.
It addressed it, but I mean, it addressed both sides of it. A lot of Democrats hated it, but Republicans hated it more. And here we are. So
look, we argue about this bill all the time. We are where we are. We showed the poll. She's down on this issue. Going to the border is not going to fix that. I don't know if you all have seen the video. There's this amazing video of her from a couple of years ago out chanting, down with mass deportation. Doug was right behind her chanting along. I mean, her views on this are so obvious. Going to rallies and chanting, running on it in 2019, 2020. I mean, we know where she is on immigration vis-a-vis Donald Trump. Going to the border is not going to change that. The American people are going to see him as tough on it. Tougher than she will ever want to be on it. They don't trust Democrats on this issue because of the last 3.5 years, the day one executive orders, and then waiting until the shadow of an election to try to pay some lip service to it. It's not going to work.
Okay, so final points for you. The bottom line is what? The bipartisan border bill, even if we take Kamala Harris's word for it and the Democrats' word for it, that Trump killed the bill, when was the bill put forward? And it was only put forward in the Senate, as you heard. That was this year. This year. Not last year, not the year before then, and not in 2021. So what have you been doing over the last 3 years to secure the border? Nothing. That's number one. Number two, you can't get any more aggressive when it comes to border security when you're talking about mass deportation and catch and release into Mexico. You can't get any more crazier than that. That's what Donald Trump stands for, and that's what he's been repeating. So Kamala Harris will never be tough on the border in the way that Donald Trump is because no one will see her that way. It just shows in the results. And the other thing that they're not saying is when she was tasked as the border czar to go visit the place where a lot of migrants are coming from, what happened in the end? We sent money to those countries. What did we get in return? More migrants. Tell me how that math makes sense. So you go to these countries, you think you're trying to solve a problem, but you actually make it worse. And not only do you make it worse, you make it worse in two different ways. You spend taxpayer money by paying these countries what you are calling relief, and then you're allowing the illegal migrants to cross the border. It just doesn't add up. And my final point is what happens in the end? We know that this country was founded on immigrants. We got that. But there has to be law and order. There has to be a process. And when there's no law and order and there's no process, you know what that takes us to? Chaos. And that's what's happening in these sanctuary cities. Chaos. That's why you see homeless people on the side of the streets. That's why you see these migrant camps. That's why you're hearing about violence and crime. No matter how many reports that the FBI tries to hide when it comes to crime, they're not reporting the full story. So at the end of the day, this is a bad look for her. This is a great look for Donald Trump. The numbers show it. And this is probably going to do more damage to her than good. Now, hopefully she does go down to the border because it'll give us an opportunity to obviously make a couple of videos about it, But that's my opinion on this. So what do you guys think about this news that she wants to visit the border? The border czar, who doesn't want to be proud of that title. Put your answers and more in the comment section below. Thank you for checking out the video today. Stay grateful, stay focused, and stay true. Peace.